Okay, let's go over some stuff on what to look out for on this unit. Um, I've mentioned some of these things previously, like the grounding issues, the direct drum. There's also some other stuff as well. Like the pump is a huge thing. Like I mentioned before, there is that bushing in there that is you should really just leave alone. You really shouldn't replace it because some of those bushings are bored out by factory to center the hole up with the converter. So saying that, if the pump is ever replaced or the torque converter is ever replaced, you're going to want to check the clearance between the pump bushing and the converter. And we will do this because I am replacing the converter on this unit. Yeah, we'll go over that. Okay, since we're on the oil pump topic, the fill procedure is very important to follow. If you do not follow the fill procedure properly, you could starve the pump of oil and then weld the inner gear to the separator plate, and you'll be rebuilding this unit again. So let's go over that, how to do that. It's in here somewhere. Let's go over the fill procedure first before I talk about anything else. Okay, so this is from Transgo. So you want to pre-fill the unit with 8 quarts of ATF, start the engine, let it run for 15 seconds, then shut it off. Add 5 more quarts, then restart the engine and complete the filling procedure. This, along with the converter pre-fill, will have the oil level within 1 to 3 quarts of full, depending on the oil pan capacity. So put in 8 quarts, let it start the engine, let it run for 15 seconds, and then kill the engine, add 5 more quarts, then restart the engine, and and then the oil level of the transmission should be within 1 to 3 quarts. So it should be good if you do it that way. And also, I would fill as much fluid as you can in the transmission beforehand, and also pre-fill the torque converter just to be safe. So that's we went over that. So let's move on to some other stuff. Okay. Also, tuning is a huge part of why these pumps fail. If you have a unit, that has a tune on it and the PCM is programming 300 psi in forward gear, there's nothing you can do to save that. There's nothing you can do to save that. That's got to be turned down. There's not a fix for that. That's always going to wipe out the pump, always. And if a customer does not want to detune or get rid of that tune, you might as well just move on and don't work on that vehicle, because it's not going to work. Also, I've heard that if the customer says, my truck is tuned, but it's not like that much. It's only like, maybe like a stage 1 or stage a half, whatever. These direct drums are really bad about going out due to programming or tuning. Just because this drum is the most abused in the unit for some reason, even though it's only in 5th gear, they're still the most abused. And from this transmission, or at least I heard this from a forum, this transmission, these clutches went out in it. One thing you can do, like I have done, is buy the direct drum clutch pack from, I believe these are GPZ clutches. They're from whatever this company is called. That's another good preventative thing to do to upgrade that clutch pack like that. These clutches are made from different types of material, and they add some more clutches in the clutch pack, which always helps out. So yeah, tuning, if the customer has a tune on it, it's you're going to want to know what they did, because that is very important to rebuilding this unit. Okay, this tells you how to install the pump gears. Never install the pump gears dry. That is true. Grounding. So in this unit, grounding is a huge problem. If there is not a clear ground path to ground on this transmission, it is going to find the ground through the pump, and then it's going to end up welding. It's going to start to arc out in the pump while the truck is running, and it's going to weld the inner pump gear to the separator plate. So on this transmission, you're going to want to have a good path to ground on this unit. Some things you can do is add an extra ground strap from the transmission to the frame, to the transmission to the battery, negative battery terminal. It's probably the best to do. Also, some things you can do is clean up the front of the bell housing. Clean up, maybe get your buffer and buff this out. And also do the same thing with the back of the engine block. Do the same thing with the back of the engine block. If this looks like it's, corroded or dirty, this one looks pretty good. Just get you a buffing wheel and buff it out. Make sure it's nice and clean so there's a good path to ground on it. Also, clean up some of the main grounds on the engine, or at least look at them and clean them up. The grounds that go on the block from the battery. Okay, so there is a delayed reverse complaint, and all of this stuff that I'm talking about is addressed in the Transgo Shift Kit. Okay, so the center support. Apparently the center support is bad about cracking. If you are trying to air check the direct clutch and it is not air checking really well, you are going to want to look at the center support. And there also may be a delayed reverse due to this. This is where the direct drum goes on. This goes onto that. And it is saying that it is having a hard time sealing right here whenever you try to air check it. Then it tells you to clean it up, because there may be some bronze on the center support. So you try to clean it up with a wire wheel or on a lathe with some Scotch-Brite. And if that is still not air checking good, it probably has a crack in the direct or the center support, and you're going to want to replace the center support. Also, another thing with these units is the external filter for the cooler. There is which this one does have it. There's an external filter for the cooler. You're going to want to take the filter out and temporarily plug the filter feed hole, and then temporarily plug the feed hole and install a bolt. Leave the cartridge out. Reinstall the filter bowl and leave the cartridge out and flush the system. After flushing, remove the bowl and bolt, clean out the housing, and install a new cartridge and bowl. Which that kind of makes sense, because if there's a filter in there and you're trying to flush out the system, that filter is still going to hold a bunch of debris and metal and fluid and all of that. So it makes sense to take out that cartridge when flushing out the oil cooler. And there's some more pump stuff. You're going to want to reset the keep alive memory when you rebuild one of these units so that the PCM can relearn how this transmission shifts and how it's supposed to. It does a reset on its memory. Okay, reset the cam, which is a keep alive memory, and then check your oil pump bushing clearance to the converter, pre-fill the converter, pre-fill the oil pump, check your grounds, check the center support, and another thing with this direct drum is these bushings right here. They're going to need to be replaced because they have such a loose tolerance with the the center support, sorry. They make a updated bushing for that, which I have somewhere right there. This is it. You see how it's one piece? This is going to go in here, just like that. Okay. They're probably gonna have to line it up somehow, some way. But that is a must-have for this unit, okay? That is a must-have. You must do it because it's a very important part of this transmission. Okay. Okay, with these units, the solenoid body, you're going to want to replace the shift solenoid D and shift solenoid D and pressure control solenoid A. Replace these two always. Yeah, that's something that most techs should do on this unit as well. And then the low reverse snap ring. The low reverse snap ring is going to go, there's an updated snap ring for the low reverse. It is just a thicker snap ring because these units are really bad about this snap ring popping out of its place and then one of the clutch housings whacking out these two lugs down here, these two. Once that snap ring pops out, it's going to whack out the lugs and you're going to look at replacing this entire case, which these things aren't cheap. So that is something you would really want to do, is get that updated low reverse snap ring for this unit. Hopefully I touched everything that needed to be talked about. Let me think real quick. So we got the pump, converter, low reverse snap ring, bushing, solenoid, body. And of course, I went over what to look out for with the pressure control valve. If that bore is wore out, you're going to want to buy the oversized kit and ream it out and put a bigger sized valve in there. And also the same thing for the position switch valve. Do the same thing. Check and make sure the bore isn't wore out. There's not like a really huge clearance issue to where it's going to leak fluid. If there is, you're going to have to buy an oversized valve and ream it out and put that oversized valve in there in this bore. That will cause a hydraulic leak. And check this thing right here. There's a pin right here that is bad about wearing out. If this pin is wore out, this usually on higher mileage vehicles, you're going to want to replace this whole thing. This comes in a whole unit. Yeah, there's a whole lot more different stuff that could go wrong, just like any other unit. You just really have to be attentive and pay attention and be really sharp about things and do your research beforehand. Okay, let's get back to putting this unit back together.